My name is Mia Peterson, and the night my sister got married, my father's hand didn't just sting against my cheek. It carved a boundary I would never let them cross again. The Whitaker estate glittered with strings of golden lights and roses as pale as bone, the air rich with champagne and money. I had slipped into a side salon to breathe when my parents found me, and with them, my sister in her gown and her new in-laws. Eleanor Whitaker, all pearls and posture, smiled like she was granting me a favor. "We'd like to borrow your helicopter for their send-off. Just a short hop over the bay. Imagine the photographs. It'll be unforgettable." I leaned against the marble mantel, keeping my tone even. "It's an aircraft, not a party decoration. It doesn't leave the hangar without my sign-off." My mother's smile thinned. My father's eyes hardened. "You'll do this for your sister," he said, stepping closer. "No," I answered. Clean. Final. Like glass shattering. The slap came fast, cracking through the paneled walls. Conversations in the hallway stuttered to silence. I noticed the quick flicker of a phone lifted, recording. I didn't touch my cheek. I didn't flinch. I walked out past the stunned faces and through the French doors into the salt night. If they wanted spectacle, they had it, just not the kind they planned. The highway back to Bridgepound was empty for a wedding night. I drove with the windows down, the late summer air pulling heat from my skin. By the time I reached North Shore Air's gates, the music and champagne laughter were miles behind me. Inside the hangar, my Bell 429 rested beneath her cover like a champion between rounds. I keyed in the code, slid the doors open, and stepped into the scent of oil and steel. Every polished rivet, every inch of cream leather, all of it, mine. People saw extravagance. I saw every brutal shift I'd flown for other companies, every storm I'd landed in, every invoice, every inspection, years of grit. My work, my life. That night, it wasn't just a machine. It was the line I had drawn. The office phone rang once, then fell silent. Seconds later, my operations manager, Lena, texted, "You good?" I typed back. Her reply, a checkmark, and "proud of you." The next morning, I was halfway through pre-flight paperwork when Lena slid her phone onto my desk. On screen was a forwarded email. Glossy, high-resolution shots of my Bell 429 in the air on the tarmac with my company logo and a glamour shot of the cabin. The caption, "Bride and groom's Montauk arrival. Champagne service included." I hadn't approved those photos. No one had permission. "Where did this come from?" Lena said. "Friend of a friend. The Whitakers had been marketing your helicopter as part of their wedding package for weeks. So they hadn't just assumed, they'd promised. And now an entire guest list expected it." I sat back in my chair, fury sliding into something colder. Boundaries don't matter if you abandon them when it's inconvenient. Change every access code, gate, hangar, fuel lock, today. And the schedule. Lock it down. Nothing moves without my signature. By afternoon, my attorney Jessica had a cease and desist drafted, crystal clear, naming my father Daniel, my sister Harper, and Eleanor Whitaker. Any attempt to access my aircraft would be treated as trespass, copies couriered, signatures recorded. The silence that followed was heavy and almost satisfying. 2 days later, Harper called. "You're making this look ridiculous," she hissed. "I'm protecting my property," I said. "That's my job. This is family." "No, this is business, and you're treating my life's work like a rented limo." The line went quiet, then died. My parents called next. My mother's voice dripped with sugar. "Mia, darling, people are whispering. Do you really want your sister's first weeks of marriage overshadowed by this?" "This?" I said. Me refusing to provide something I was never even asked for directly. You know how appearances matter. They matter to you. What matters to me is keeping what I've built from being treated like a toy. She hung up, muttering. 2 days later, my father tried. You've made your point. Now it's time to let this go. We'll arrange something else, but it would be better if you cooperated before more damage is done. Damage to what? I asked. Their reputation? Or your ability to snap your fingers and expect obedience? He didn't answer, just a clipped goodbye. By weekend, Lena walked in with industry news. A tech company the Whitakers had been courting had pulled out of a joint venture. Officially, instability in execution. Unofficially, the helicopter fiasco was mentioned in the decision. They're bleeding credibility, Lena said, and too proud to admit it started because they assumed you'd bend. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, like I'd tested the steel of my boundaries and found them intact. The invitation came, embossed, cream paper, promising family reconciliation. I went, not for peace, but for clarity. The hotel dining room was linen and crystal. My parents, Harper, tight smiles. Eleanor absent. We spoke about weather until my father leaned forward. We admit we should have asked you directly. That's not an apology, I said. We pushed that night because we knew you'd refuse otherwise. We thought if we asked in front of people, you'd feel pressured. There it was, the quiet part, spoken out loud. You didn't respect my answer, I told them. You turned it into a performance to get what you wanted. That ends now. We finished the meal in brittle silence. I left cash for my share and walked out into the bright afternoon. The air outside felt cleaner than any reconciliation they offered. They hadn't lost me because I cut them off. They lost me because I stepped out of reach. And from where I stood, that distance was the most honest thing between us. A year later, the Whitakers had faded from the charity pages. My parents stayed in Harbor Ridge. We crossed paths only when avoidance was easy. North Shore Air, though, thrived. Contracts with renewable energy, medical transport, even a conservation group that praised my uncompromising operational standards. Saying no hadn't ruined me. It defined me. One October morning, I lifted off with a corporate client, the city unfolding below in sharp autumn light. Bridges like silver threads, the harbor alive with ships. Every takeoff, mine to decide. When I landed, Lena met me on the tarmac. You've got a visitor, she said. Harper stood in the hangar, her coat too big, hair tied back simply. Smaller, somehow. I'm not here to fight, she said softly. I just wanted to see it, what you've built. I showed her the bell, the scheduling systems, the maintenance bay. For once, she didn't ask to borrow, only asked how it worked. At the door, she hesitated. I can't undo what I did, but I understand now why you said no. Not an apology, not quiet, but closer than anything I'd heard. When she left, I stood in the hangar's quiet, the bell gleaming under the lights. Some storms you meet head-on, others you hold your ground and let pass. Either way, I was still standing where I chose. Winter came, crisp and salt-edged. From my office, I could see the bell resting on her pad, rotors still, white skin catching pale light. Every contract bore my signature. Every flight happened because I allowed it. The distance from my family no longer felt like a wound. It felt like a boundary, one I'd built, reinforced, and learned to live inside without apology. They stopped calling. I stopped wondering if they'd change. And for the first time, I knew the truth. Saying no that night hadn't just protected an aircraft, it had protected me.